Good morning, students. Can you hear me? Okay. Now, today we are going to discuss one of the important topic which is very much required in your practice, in your future life, and as well as from the examination point of view. So, I will just switch on. Can you name the equipment? You can answer in the chat box. Anyone who can name this instrument? What is this? Okay. Roll number 1, can you name the instrument? You are there? Can you name the instrument? What is shown in your, just now I have shown you on the screen. So one has said ECG, electrocardiograph, and one has said this is ECG recorder, right? So anyone else who can answer that one? 64. Can you tell me what is that? Okay. So we'll move on. Spring galvanometer. Okay. Now let us see. Now this is the first ECG which was done by Enthoven. So this was his first ECG, and you can see here the leg is put in salt water. Then you can see both the hands there. These two hands are also in salt solution. So with this, the Enthoven has discovered the first ECG of the world. Now let us move to a case scenario. Now you are posted in the emergency room in clinical posting. On 27th of May at 11:15 a.m., 2 patients are brought to the emergency room. One is 15-year-old boy who was presented with chest pain of 5 days duration, and another 67-year-old man who is hypertensive with mild shortness of breath and chest discomfort of 5 days duration. So these two patients were brought to the emergency room. The medical officer on duty, he examined the patients and then ordered an ECG for 15-year-old boy and wrote a prescription of tablet pantoprazole and asked him to attend the outpatient department. Now, your job is to find out whether the ECG indicated for this 15-year-old boy or not. So you go and read the book, and after 2 or 3 days, next time, not tomorrow, after 1 week time, we will again discuss on this. So you have to, on that day, you have to give me the answer for this question, okay? Now, whenever we order an ECG, we should know why it is indicated and what we are expecting from the ECG. And as you know, the most common investigation in cardiology is always ECG. So whenever you want to learn, we as a student also, we try to purchase a book which written ECG made easy. So we think when we purchase a book, ECG made easy will make everything very easy. So in fact, when you start reading the ECG made easy, you will find that the ECG becomes more and more complicated, and at the end of the book, you will be again in the beginning of the book. So with this, what I have decided is we will make this ECG learning into certain modules. Today, I will be covering the module 1 and 2, and in the subsequent days, we will try to finish all the important aspects which are required for an undergraduate. So today's learning objectives are: 1, to understand the basic concept of an ECG lead. Next, to know the 12 conventional ECG leads and the angles from which each lead views the heart's electrical activity. The third learning objective is to know the proper location of the 10 conventional ECG electrodes. And finally, the learning objective is to correlate specific groups of leads with anatomic regions of the heart. So these are the 4 learning objectives which we are going to cover in the next 15 minutes or so. Okay. Now the first question is, what is a lead? So what is this? When we call a lead, what is a lead? A lead is a view of the voltage between 2 points, generally known as poles, as a function of time. The positive pole of each lead is marked by a single recording electrode on the body. The negative pole for each lead is marked by either a single recording electrode or a virtual electrode known as central terminal, which averages input from multiple other electrodes. A lead is not same as an electrode. As I have shown you in the first diagram, the electrode, that was an electrode. Now let us visualize a video camera. When you take pictures from video camera, we can take different angles. So this is ECG is just like a video camera. Now you see, whenever a line is there, that means the electrode, the voltage flow in the same direction, then a positive complex is formed. If the electrode flows in the opposite direction, a negative complex is formed. When it is perpendicular to the electrode, then a biphasic complex is formed. Now this thing can be viewed in context of the heart. Let us assume a video camera. Now you are viewing the heart from the left soldier, sorry. And then this comes a little down and you are looking at the heart at the horizontal level. Again, it comes in the lower left quadrant and you are looking at the heart from below upwards and then inferiorly upwards, again towards left side to the left soldier upwards, then horizontally from left side to the horizontal direction, and again from the right soldier downwards, and finally from above downwards. So this is ECG is just like a video camera which looks at the heart from different angles, and when we compile all these things, then we get certain your leads. Now before we come again back to these leads, let us see the setup for an ECG. Now a patient and an ECG machine is required here, and you can see the ECG machine on the table, and here electrodes are kept in different positions. So we will come to that in a little later. Now this patient is connected to the ECG machine through leads. So there are 10 leads are there. And once the patient is connected to the ECG machine through the electrodes, then we can get one ECG. Now, there are standard limb leads, augmented limb leads, and chest leads. So here I'm showing you the standard limb leads. This is one ECG paper which is taken from a patient. Now lead 1, lead 2, and lead 3, they are known as standard limb leads. Then AVR, AVL, and AVF, these are known as augmented limb leads. Then we have 6 leads represented by V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6. All these 6 leads are kept on the chest. Therefore, we call them as chest leads. And apart from these 12 leads, we usually find the rhythm of the heart by V1, lead V1, lead 2, and lead V5. So usually we use lead 2 as rhythm strip. Now coming to the standard limb leads, what this standard limb lead does. So when we connect the right arm with the left arm, then the standard limb lead 1 is formed. That means the right arm will have negative pole and the left arm will have positive pole. Then when we combine the left leg with the right arm, that is right arm with negative pole and left leg with positive pole, this constitutes the lead 2. When we combine the left arm with left leg, left arm having negative pole and left leg having positive pole, that forms the standard limb lead 3. So this was the first time invented by Enthoven. That is what the first image which I have shown you, that was the first ECG, and the first practical ECG was formed in 1903. So this attached recording electrodes to the right arm, and left leg to create the 3 standard limb leads. So whenever anyone asks you what is the standard limb leads, then it is lead 1, lead 2, and lead 3. Now let us see right arm, and so this is what I told you, lead 1, right arm and left leg, so lead 2, then left arm and left leg, it is lead 3. So this is also known as, when we combine all these 3 leads, so this forms a triangle, and this triangle is named after your Enthoven. So this is Enthoven's triangle. So I mean to say voltage as measured by lead 1 plus the voltage as measured by lead 3 equals the voltage as measured by lead 2. That means lead 2 voltage is equal to lead 1 voltage plus lead 3 voltage. So this is also known as Enthoven's law. So the first one is Enthoven's triangle and the second one is your Enthoven's law. So whenever Enthoven's law is voltage of lead 2 is equal to the sum of voltage in lead 1 and lead 3. Now, what do we mean by augmented limb leads? This augmented limb leads is to increase the number of directions from which the heart can view. The ECG machine also uses a central terminal. Now, this is the central terminal. The voltage comes out from the center and it goes towards your left arm, then towards right arm, and then towards the left leg. The central terminal is made by connecting the right arm, and left leg electrodes together. So this in turn results in a virtual negative terminal that is composed of the average of the electrical potentials from all the three limb leads. So the right arm towards the right arm, that is AVR, towards the left arm, this is your AVL, and towards the left leg is AVF. In this augmented limb leads, when we designate them AVR, the A stands for your augmented, and the V is listed in any lead that uses the central terminal. V stands for your central terminal. So in this one, AVR plus AVL plus AVF must be 0. So this is one thing which you have to always remember. Now we have earlier one Enthoven's triangle. Now we have the augmented limb leads. So when we combine these together, then that forms our XXL system. So this is XXL system, and so just the voltage is towards the right leg, and then it goes towards your left side, then again to the, so when it is pointed towards the left shoulder, it is AVL, horizontally it is lead 2, then at the angle, means in between your right leg and horizontal one, lead 2, then we have AVF, then we have your lead 3, then you see the AVR. So this is XXL system. So earlier 3 were there and we added 3 more. So this is how the XXL system looks like. So at the 90 degree, then 30, 60. So this is all your XXL system. Now in modern ECG machines only the directly they measure lead 1 and 2, all other leads, that means lead 3, AVR, AVL and AVF are calculated from your lead 1 and lead 2 voltages. So only the ECG machine measures your voltage in lead 1 and lead 2. The rest are calculated. Now next we have completed the standard limb leads, and then we completed your augmented limb leads. Now we have precordial leads. Now there are 6 leads which examine the heart's electrical activity in the transverse plane. The positive pole for each is at a location on the anterior or left lateral chest wall. The negative pole for each is at the central terminal. And finally, the leads are named V1 to V6. So these are the 4 characteristic features which you have to remember in case of precordial leads. Now where these precordial leads are placed. Now when we come to see V1, let us see V1 where it is kept. V1 is in the 4th intercostal space just right of the sternum. You can see the hand here. So the finger, so that is the area where we keep the V1 lead. Then V2 is 4th intercostal space just left of the sternum. Then V3 is halfway between V2 and V4. So now you will see where we keep the V4. So V4 is fifth intercostal space in mid-clavicular line. Then V5 is halfway between V4 and V6. And finally, V6 is in the fifth intercostal space in mid-axillary line. Here, one thing you have to remember that V4, V5, and V6, these are all in the same line. So they cannot go one upwards and one downwards. These are at the same horizontal level. Now, what is the spatial relationship between these lids? Now we have the hexaxial system, which we have described earlier. Now we have the precordial lids. When we combine these together, then that forms your total 12 leads. So this is what is called as 12 lead ECG when we combine the precordial leads with your hexaxial system. Now let us see what is the anatomical correlation with these. Now you see the transparent ball, it is covering your 3 AVF and 2 lead 2. So this is the area. That means the lead 2, lead 3 and AVF will give us information regarding the inferior wall. Then the V1 and V2, it is usually the septal area. So that gives us any changes in the septal wall. Then V3 and V4, this gives us information regarding the anterior wall of the heart. Then we have V5, V6 and AVL. So this is the lateral wall of the heart. So this gives information regarding V5, V6 and AVL. Now what is left? Left is AVR. So usually AVR is independent. It is not related with the anatomical location, but it can assist us in diagnosis of some other conditions. Now let us reproduce the same thing in case of an ECG. Now let us see here. So when we say inferior, that means I said lead 2, lead 3 and AVF gives us information regarding the inferior wall of the heart. So this is represented in 12 lead ECG, the shaded area, which gives us the information regarding this. The second one is septal V1 and V2. So this is by orange ones, orange shade. Now you can see the anterior one V3 and V4. It is by green shade. Then you can see a lateral wall V5, V6, AVL and lead 1. So this gives us your information regarding your lateral wall. And AVR, that is no group. So this is in brief the basics of ECG. So this ends the basic knowledge regarding the ECGs. Okay. Now, do you have any questions regarding this? Anyone? Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me? Roll number 4104.
Yes, sir.
You have anything to ask? Anything? Any doubts? Twenty-three. 23. 23. Here, but not listening. Okay. 18. 18.
Answer.
Any doubts? Anything to ask?
No, sir.
No. Okay. That means we can proceed further. So this was what see, somebody has asked, can AVR plays a role in interpretation of ECG? Of course, there are certain things which we will later on, once we go through the other modules. So we will answer this. What is the role of AVR? Somebody is saying anatomic correlation is a bit confusing. So I don't think, if you see the V1 and V2, it is your septal. You only think about the left ventricle. Left ventricle V1, V2 is opposite the septum. So this is septal. And then the apex, left ventricular apex is in front of V3 and V4. So that is anterior part. And the V5 and V6, that is staying lateral to the left ventricle. So that is lateral one. And to that you add AVL and lead one. So that will form your lateral one. So now remaining, what is remained is your lead 2, lead 3 and AVF. So this forms your inferior wall. So these are the anatomical localization for the leads. So this is to be clear. If you are confusing in this lead 1, lead 2, lead 3 corresponds to which part of the heart, then you will not able to interpret the myocardial infarction. So any ECG in which you get acute changes, you will not able to interpret. Okay. So we will move to the second part now. So once the anatomical localization is over, now we will move to the waveforms, segments and intervals. Now in this part, what is our learning objective? The first one is to recognize normal waveforms and to know what physiological events each represents. The next learning objective is to identify intervals and segments on the ECG. And the third one is to understand basic conceptual significance of abnormal intervals. Now you see, this is one ECG, 12 lead ECG, where you can clearly see lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, then V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6. With that, you can see here the rhythm strip. The fourth tracing is the rhythm strip. First 1, 2, 3 tracings, they represent 4 leads. Okay, so 4 into 3, so 12 leads are there. Now, what do you mean by waveforms? Now, let us see this diagram. This is a waveform. Waveforms are caused by changes in voltage as measured between 2 points on the body. Now, each waveform represents a discrete electrophysiological event in the cardiac cycle. Now, let us see these waveforms. So, the P wave, this is your P wave. So, this is formed because of atrial depolarization. So, this is the P wave. Now, let us see the QRS complex. the QRS complex is due to ventricular depolarization. So this is in the ECG. This is the area where you can see the ventricular. Now you can see here, this is the QRS complex. Now the next one is your T wave. So this is the T wave. So T wave is here, and you can see the ventricular repolarization. This T wave is due to ventricular repolarization. So the waveforms, there are three different waves are there. One is your P wave, second is QRS complex, and the third one is your T wave. And these three are formed because of depolarization and repolarization. Now let us see the P wave, U wave. This U wave is due to unknown etiology. Okay. Now waveforms are characterized by their duration, amplitude, and morphology. Some problem in the system, technical problem. Okay, let us see a little bit more about these waveforms. Now, in the QRS complex, you can see a long positive wave, which is known as R wave. And this R wave is preceded by a small, your indentation downwards. So that is your Q wave. And then you can see the QR, that R wave is followed by again a downward deflection. So that is our S wave. So this is your QRS. Now this one, you can see predominantly your R wave preceded by small q and small s. So this is written as small q, capital R, and small s. Now let us see the next one. You can see a big deflection downwards and R wave is small. So here you will write capital Q and small r. Next you can see a big R, then a big equal strength S wave is there. So this is known as capital R, capital S. Here you can see two R's are there, one R, then S, then again R. So this is written as R, capital R, small s, capital R dash. Then you see here predominantly negative deflection. There is no positive deflection at all. So this is written as your capital Q, capital S. So you can see the same QRS complex is written differently based on the positive deflection or negative deflection. At the same time, their amplitude. So if the amplitude of R is very more, then that is written as capital R. If the amplitude is smaller, usually the big one, whichever amplitude is high, we compare with that the other one. So it should, when both are equal, then we write both capitals. If one is big one and the other one is smaller, the bigger one will be written in capital and the smaller one will be written in smaller letters. So we have completed the waveform. Now we have to discuss about the segments. Now what do you mean by segment? So this segment is nothing but this segment connects two waveforms. That means what we have learned, three waveforms, one P waveform, then QRS complex, and then T wave. So the P wave is connected with your QRS. So this is one segment. Then you will see that QRS complex is connected to the T wave. So there is another segment and the T wave is connected to the P wave. Now let us see this one. So the P wave is connecting the QRS complex. So this is known as PR segment. When the QRS complex is connected to the T wave, then that is known as ST segment. And when the T wave connects the P wave, so that segment is known as TP segments. That means segments connect waveforms. So the segments have got some morphology. So you have to look for the morphology of these segments, whether the PR segment is short or prolonged. Similarly, whether this is in the baseline or away from the baseline, that is what you have to look for. So the third part is the intervals. So the intervals include your waveforms plus or minus segments. Now let us see one example. So PR interval, when we say PR interval, this PR interval contains your PR wave plus PR segment. Similarly, when we say QRS interval, this indicates only the time for QRS complex. When we say QT interval, it includes QRS complex plus ST segment plus your T wave. When we say RR interval, this includes between two RR waves, everything that includes. That means your ST segment, T wave, TP segment, then your P wave, then PR interval. So the RR interval includes everything between these two R waves. So in intervals, the characteristics used to describe intervals, these include duration. Usually we find out what is the PR interval, what is the QR interval, QRS interval, then QT interval. So this only gives us the intervals. Now let us see what are the normal durations and significance of these abnormal durations. So PR interval, the normal duration is 120 to 200 milliseconds, and its significance is when the lower limit is 120. So when there is PR interval less than 120 millisecond, it means that there is an abnormal connection between atria and ventricles. Whenever there is more than 200 milliseconds, then we call it the abnormality is somewhere in the AV node. So delayed conduction through the AV node. Now regarding QRS complex, the normal duration is usually equal to or less than or equal to 120 milliseconds. Whenever this QRS interval is more than 120 milliseconds, it indicates that there is abnormal sequence of ventricular depolarization or excessive ventricular mass. Now, when it comes to QT interval, we take it the normal duration as half of the RR interval. This is an approximation. If the QT interval is more than half of the RR interval, that indicates delayed ventricular repolarization. So the significance of these we will discuss when we discuss about the arrhythmias. Now, after these waveforms, intervals, and segments, we have one more thing, important thing, that is the J point. So this is the point where the ST segment and the S segment meet. So this is known as J point. This J point is important for our to find out whether there is acute myocardial infarction is present or not. Okay. So this finishes the waveforms, then your segments, and finally the intervals. So this finishes our module 2. So if you have any questions, then you can ask the questions. So any questions? Do you have any questions? Roll number 19.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions? Anything?
No, sir.
No. Okay. 29. 29.
Yes, sir.
Anything?
No, sir.
No. 39. 39. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Do you have anything to ask?
No, sir.
Hmm?
No, sir.
No. Okay. If nothing is there, I think somebody has. Somebody has some doubt. In QS wave, there is only one negative deflection, then we have named it only single letter Q. See, the Q is negative, that is a downward deflection, whereas the S is negative, but it is upward deflection. Therefore, we call it as QS. So, the Q is usually a downward deflection and S is your upward deflection in the down from down to up. Therefore, we call it as this one. Okay. Next, segment characteristics regarding the baseline. See, the segments, what we require is in the segments, we require only whether there is any, we find out the duration and whether it is upwards or downwards. These are the only two things which we are going to discuss while discussing about the left ventricle and right ventricle. Now, is there only change in V1 and V2 if there is a defect in septal wall? See, these anatomical locations, these are actually basically taken into account with a normal blood flow. That means there should not be any anomaly in your right coronary artery and in the left coronary artery. If there is some anomaly, then these V1, V2 and all other things will also change. But normally, usually what we say, if V1 and V2 means it is septal 1. So whenever there is septal infarct, we will look for in the V1 and V2. Normally also in some individuals, you will find some deflections in V1 and V2, negative or upwards also. But the indicates, what we call the diagnosis of MI is based on certain criteria. So only based on ECG, you cannot say that some patient is having myocardial infarction or not. Why QRS complex in V1 is in negative deflection is normal. see negative deflection, all these things, there are axis is there, then rotation is there. All these things we are going to discuss in the next class. So unless you know the axis and rotation part, we will not be able to make you understand regarding why the QRS complex V1 is negative. So this is based on your axis, normal axis, and whether the axis is changed, whether the left ventricle is hypertrophied or left ventricle is enlarged. There are many factors which cause the QRS complexes. Okay. So if you have no more questions, then what we are going to discuss in the next class. So the next class is basically on, now you see here, now the next class is rate and rhythm. So you have to see the rate, what is the rate of the ECG in this ECG, then you have to look for the rhythm. So as I said, the rhythm is seen in V1, then lead 2 and lead sometimes V6. So these are the things which you have to look for. So if you have any questions, then we will take up the questions. Otherwise, we will close the session. You have any questions? No. Then thank you.